footprints of doom, eyes wide open, felt the gloom. In that house, shadows consume.
Hello out there in podcast land, good people. Welcome aboard tonight. This is your humble host, Mr. Dennis Carroll, and this is another edition of Hunting the Shadows coming right at you here. We're going to have an interesting show for you tonight. Got my good buddy Brian Minnick here, and we're going with that's the name of the show tonight, Return to Montauk. Okay, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to be talking a little bit of that, and he's got a new book coming out. We're going to be talking about that some too. I want to welcome you all in the grotto tonight, which is what also known as the chat room. And I appreciate you all being here, and we're going to have a great show for you tonight. And I want to say we had a great show with our good friend Gerald Fountain Monday night. If you missed it, I feel sorry for you. I feel sad for you if you missed it. You missed a great show, okay? So go back and check it out if you missed it. It was Alpine Monsters, okay? We really talked about a lot of the monsters of the Alpine regions and mountains and all that, and there is a ton of them, definitely. So go check it out. It's a great show. Also, if you missed the show I did with Jessica Jones on the Cryptid Huntress about the doll, Annabelle, and all that, go back and check that out. It was a great show. And matter of fact, she did a great show today with Nick and about werewolves, elite teams, and all that was great. If you missed that, definitely go check out the Cryptid Huntress, okay? Also, tomorrow at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I will be appearing on Aquarius Rising Africa. And with my good friend Chantel Mayberg, we will be talking about Agents of Evil. So you definitely do not want to miss that one either. It's going to be a wild ride, folks. You better buckle up for that, and you better buckle up tonight, because me and my good buddy here, Brian, we're going back to Montauk, strange Montauk, and it is definitely, as I was telling him before the show, definitely on my bucket list to go there, definitely one day, absolutely. And it is a fascinating place. You know, there are a lot of places like that just in this country alone. You don't have to be a world traveler to go see some of these places. Like I have been on the trail in North Carolina mountains of the Wampus Cat. Strange place, has some very, very, very interesting connections with it. Absolutely. I'm gonna bring him on here now. I think their feed is a little flaky tonight here. I don't know what's going on with it, off and on. Hopefully it'll hold on for a while. And I don't know. I don't know if they're working on the lines, or if maybe they don't like the subject we're about. You know, they might be a part of it too. You never know. Definitely. And yep, so let me get that link up there. That is the glitch in the matrix thing there. And then we've got the one for Chantel tomorrow with Aquarius Rising, South Africa. Yep, check it out. And like I say, if you like us, please support. Hit the like button. Like us, definitely. And you know, there's something I want to tell you. I'm gonna tell you all this. There's something spooky about that like button. It gives you good luck if you hit it. Okay. So if you need some good luck, go ahead and mash that thing a few times. See what happens. Trust me, it's real weird. Go check it out. But if you haven't subscribed, please do so. We also have a Patreon. You can check that out. And we have membership is now open in the Shadow Hunters Club. Okay. Are you a Shadow Hunter? All right, you might want to think about it. We have some great stuff. I've got some fixing to drop some more great videos on the members. So please check that out when you get a chance, okay? Well, it's time to bring on my good buddy Brian here, and we're going to see what he's got to tell us today. And here he is now, Mr. Brian Minnick. Yes, sir. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for having me back. I appreciate it,
Good.
as always.
All right. We'll make sure your sound's going. Yeah, there we go.
You got it?
That's good. Yeah, sounds good. How you doing up? What's the weather like up that way?
It's been raining a lot last couple days and just cold, actually. It's supposed to be a little warmer than it is, and it's been freezing. Actually, heat's been coming on at night, so but I'm no complaints. I'm ready to go, hoping the ticks have not, made their way out yet.
I've been talking to a lot of people about that. It seems like all over the country, weather's doing some weird stuff this year. I mean, the other day, I'm in South Carolina, by the way, and the other day we hit 90, and today it's like, just barely in the 50s.
Yeah,
it's kind of a drastic change. Definitely.
I base everything around the ticks pretty much, out here, because I don't know. As soon as they come out, it's like a whole different, way of exploring out there. We don't go, off trail as much. And there's a couple of places I want to go next that are definitely off trail, because there's something I found that I've been looking for all these years. And it was right there. I've been like near it so many times, but I'll have to go off trail for that at least. Some things are worth it.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. Everybody knows this to a certain degree. The weather's definitely not like it used to be. Things have definitely changed in this world a lot. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just in the off chance somebody out there doesn't know you, and you are a legend, my friend. Okay. Just in case they don't know you, you want to tell them a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. I'm somebody who's been going to Camp Hero, local Long Islander, but not from Montauk, but I've been going there my whole life, and found my way into the bunkers when I was a kid with friends, and then went back a bunch in the 90s when we, read the first book series that was out, and we were going there probably 25 times in the 90s, and we have some old footage from that time. And then ever since, I kind of came back into it a couple of years ago with a history show that I was on, and then that brought me back into like researching and started the YouTube channel. And then we've been there like another 45 times since I started the YouTube channel. So we're almost at like number 75, trip number 75, as far as like field reports that I've kept track of all the details. So, but that's not the only thing I do. I've been talking to a lot of locals and people now that I'm meeting all over the internet. I mean, all over the world, that are giving me stuff, stories, documents, pictures, and I just met so many people. And the more people I meet and talk to, the more info I get, and I have more of everything basically. But I do want to put it into like a final, kind of package it up so it's everything that I have is out there as well. So I think I got enough right now to do so.
Have you revised your recent book any, or is it?
I have a copy with all of the little errors that I found. I did all of the layout of all the typing, all of the graphics, and all the spell checking. So there's definitely a couple spelling errors. I'm going to try to get a second edition. I'm working on that to get one printed with color pictures this time. And
I hate those. We always run into a few of those blooper things that get in there somehow or another. Yeah. You can have a whole bunch of editors looking at it, and they always miss something. Definitely.
You can have 10 pairs of eyes, and still you always miss something.
Mm-hmm.
Especially
when I was telling somebody this the other day. I did a book on poetry years ago that actually still for sale on Amazon, and I said you had to be very, very careful with that. You could just change one word and it messes up the whole poem. It completely changes the meaning of it. People don't understand how very important, how it is very important to articulate what you're trying to get across there.
That's
one
true.
One word can really screw things up.
Yeah, it can change the whole meaning.
Here's a photo of the book here.
Thank you.
Strange Montauk. I actually have a copy here myself, somewhere in the files. I was looking for it today. I got it here somewhere. But anyway,
probably at the bottom because it's
heavy. I need a secretary. Very bad. I need a secretary. Come in, clean everything out. But Anyway,
Yeah, it's probably at the bottom of the stack, right?
if you get a chance, you don't have this book, go check it out because it is a fascinating book. It's got something, and I'll tell you
Right.
what, we talked about this. Now, I had you on last time. It's been a couple of months back, I think, a few months back, and
Yeah.
we talked about how Montauk was related to the Philadelphia experiment, and had some relation to that going on with it. And of course, we talked. I think at that time we talked about a lot of that drone activity that was going on and stuff.
Yes.
Is that still, by the way, is that still an issue up there?
The news cycle goes so fast that, like, even the conspiracy cycle of what people are catching in modern times, of weather, everything, I think it just we lost track of it. Like 2 weeks later, it became like the fog or the plastic snow, and then there was wildfires again, and it just kept, there was one thing after another. So I think people still see them up there, and nobody's really just paying attention as much anymore. But I was
there's been some talk of some of these weird fogs that people have encountered, and especially by the ocean, by the sea. These fogs that burn your skin and make you cough and all that stuff, weird stuff. Sounds very much like chemical fog type thing going on.
Yeah, I did hear about that a little, and also, of course, the synthetic fog. That's the nanobots. The little, and there was a whole. They've been working on it for years. These little tiny, they're like little wheels with arms, and they can link, and they power themselves through a small. It's not even a battery. It's like they use the contact from each other to generate electricity. It was crazy, and they each have a little computer in them. I think it's called nano fog or smart fog. That's what it's called. But yeah, there was all these, things one after another. We had the wildfires out here, and they blamed that on the s'mores in the Pine Barrens here on Long Island. There was a fire, and it was, the first thing you think of is like, the Hawaiian, what happened in Hawaii and everything else. So, but yeah, this year was crazy with the news cycle, I feel like. So the drones just kind of came and went. But a Philadelphia experiment has a fog, related to it as well. In fact, when we were all out there, when we go every year on the 12th. Well, me, Dark Hour Paranormal, and Long Island Bigfoot would go on the August 12th, which is the day from the Montauk Project storyline. And then each year, different people would come with us. Some one year, different people, another. But then we merged with, like Brian saying, had the adventure exploration tour for Montauk, and that's when I got to meet everybody else that was involved. Just when Jessica came, Jessica Jones, Cryptid Huntress. That was awesome. We had fun. Danielle was there, and one day my car broke down in Camp Hero. Took a train back, but I got to meet everybody like James Rink, Alondra Markman, Arkeem Ra, and
That's
Brian,
neat.
and so many more people, actually. Not to just name them. I think Sean Bond came later, and so people that I hadn't met throughout all these years regarding Montauk and the whole thing. That was really cool. And then the next year, that was the 4th year. So I don't know if we're going to do it again, but that's the date of the biorhythm that the Philadelphia experiment supposally linked to
I have
Montauk.
to watch so many of your videos that you've done, but I feel like I've been there. Okay, so
That's cool.
I have watched
That's
them
really cool.
thoroughly. I enjoy watching the videos that you and some other people put up on these, and it is a fascinating place, definitely.
That's really
And
cool.
I can see why it keeps drawing you back to it. No doubt at all about that. But I wanted to ask you something. I mean,
Sure.
if you have you ever, while you've been there or around in that area and all that, have you ever experienced anything that you would call some other type of paranormal activity? Maybe like
Definitely.
ghost, kind of a ghostly spiritual type thing.
Oh yeah,
Have you encountered
absolutely.
that?
Yeah, it's so much of it. It's well, like in the radar, there's his own set of things that have happened in there to us in the radar tower. Like on the 4th floor, we were up there with some friends from Hawaii that came, and basically something sang out, like in a disembodied voice, sang out over our heads, and it was like sounded Native American, and we all answered it. We were like, "Huh?" Like we yelled up to it because we thought it was somebody right floating above our heads. That makes a lot of sense. And then a second later, instead of answering us, something on the floor above got pushed over. It was like a couple tons. It sounded like so heavy, and it just boom shook the whole, like made this echoing
There's
sound.
been talk in the past, and when we were talking about the drones and all that, and I believe those are some of them, or definitely, I would term sort of alien probes kind of things, I believe, without doubt. And I've seen some of them. I've seen some of the orbs that people have seen. We down here in South Carolina, we had one summer we had nothing but red orbs. I don't know where those things came from. Anyway, we had that kind of activity going on and all that. But we were talking about this the other day. I was talking about it with somebody else, and MONTAUK came up about that. And that's why I wanted to ask you about that paranormal thing, because sometimes paranormal stuff may be related to interchanges between timelines sometimes or something, you know?
Sure. Yeah.
You ever wonder about that? Maybe like there's something,
I agree. Yeah, I agree. Like dimensional crossover in a way, just or bleed through, whatever you want to call it. But like if you, like, you know, of course, if we cast a 2D shadow on the wall, but we're a 3D object. So what does it look like if a 4D object casts a shadow onto our 3D world? It might look like some of the things we see. And it goes two ways too. You could project upward. So that's like, well, somebody would call manifesting. But if it's in 2D, it's just
that's
code
definite
that could
paranormal,
project,
definitely
you know,
paranormal,
holographic
but
universe.
it's definitely portal.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of many concepts
as well. When you start casting 3 and 4D shadows of objects and stuff, you're looking at some kind of portal activity.
Yeah, like you know, where layers of dimensions overlap, basically, you might see some of that stuff. But I you know, there's been plenty of stuff. We caught a picture in the radar of a face floating over our heads, and it actually kind of looks like Preston Nichols in a way. And it was on my friend Becky from Arizona. She came out and had an old film camera that actually used film, like Super 8 camera, and she caught it on that, which is pretty cool. And also we got the door slamming in there over and over, and a whole series of like conversations. But we were wondering why the radar, you know, seems to retain anything that we don't know of anything that actually happened in that building. You know, as far as we know, anything as far as the legend and lore happened below ground. And there's no reason for all of those different, you know, but there was a lot of shipwrecks offshore and stuff. So who knows how it all happens. But we've also heard EVPs in our footage after we just walked, you know, in the daylight somewhere on the property. It was an old hospital across the street from there, actually. So that was one thing that
have you ever took, I'm sure you have, but I'll ask it just in case. Have you ever taken the EMF readings around in some of those areas?
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. We use it in a bunch of places on the property and in the planetary cross point, which is that it's supposed to be a portal or a ley line crossing. Not a ley line crossing, but a more of a portal or what do they call it? Where the sun would connect directly to the earth. So an energy cross point is what they were calling that particular thing. But, you know, who knows? There's not much history to that. So I was digging into the military history and the old maps to see when they built that circle. But there's what you were saying about UFOs too. We've caught several of those over the skies of Camp Hero also, which is crazy. So I was just zooming in on a biplane going by just to test my camera's zoom, and whew, this ball flies right past the wing. And I zoom in, it's like a little metal sphere. It just goes flying past the plane. And a series of things like that at the base. I've seen another metal ball on a film going past the wire, the telephone high tension wires. And then when I got out, I caught it just shooting straight up into space. So it's like this big, and then it gets smaller and smaller. It just goes straight up. So we caught a few things in the sky, a few things in the woods, a few paranormal things there. And I think it could be, you know, that place had, if there were ripples in time or whatever, you know, if they did anything to space time on that property, then some of these effects would obviously make sense too. And then you have the story of Junior, and
that sounds a lot like that.
stories.
The metal sphere supposedly found in South America. I know you've heard about that. It's a very alien-looking thing, and it may be a hoax, but it is very interesting. And nevertheless,
is that the one the family brings in the house, or
the Air Force and stuff on these metallic spheres being seen? Yeah.
For years, I've been seeing the spheres for like 20 years. You know, collecting UFO stuff as a kid. Even like I remember the orbs. They look like luminous orbs in the sky, but they come out of a mothership or whatever, and then they look like a metal sphere. And I think one family actually, there was a video where a family got one, and it was like rolling around their house. And I think that was on like an old Unsolved Mysteries or something. But there was a case where this family actually took one in, and it was like responding to them and stuff. It was really weird, but it had radiation just like that other one. I think you were talking about the one found in the jungle or something like that. But the USOs too is a good connection for those drones, like because they seem to have some kind of connection to the water, and there are things in our oceans that are definitely not human, like
They
octopus
have
is
been
not.
observed coming in and out of the water on
Yeah,
several occasions. It makes perfect sense to me,
they
Brian,
can
that
light up, shapeshift, everything.
these would definitely be alien probes of some sort because they would be their eyes and ears to look around and see things and take readings on stuff and all that. It makes sense when you
Yeah,
think about it. If
and
I
the
were an
lights
alien
resemble.
species wanting to scout out a planet, I would definitely have probes. I mean, to do that.
I think the lights on them resemble like what you see on like jellyfish and squid, how they light up sometimes, and they have like flashing multicolored lights on some of those jellyfish, and also how squids and octopus
Yeah.
shapeshift so well. That's like all they have to do
Well,
is
there may
take
be some
flight.
type of biospheres. When you think about that, there
Hmm.
may be some type of a living type organism that's turned into their technology. Who knows what we're dealing with here because it's very alien like in its conception. It could be some type of biospheres that they're using.
Yeah, definitely. They may have been here forever too. There was one story in New Jersey. I think it's a reservoir in like the '60s or something like that, and they had this similar. All these drones came out. They would describe the same, different shapes, but lots of color, a lot of red and green flashing lights that kind of look like FAA lights. But and this story, I think you can find it pretty easily on Google now because a couple people put it in, a couple TikTok
Well, we had
videos. But
not too far from where I'm at tonight. As a matter of fact, years ago, we had a very dramatic UFO sighting at a lake near here, and that ship was sort of like a very spheroidic type looking ship.
mhm.
Was supposedly they saw it was taking on water,
Wow,
was taking up water out of the lake.
wow. It's very
Yeah.
interesting, all of this stuff. And Montauk even has its own set of USOs or undersea objects or whatever you want to call them. The fishermen have kind of over the years hinted at things they've seen but don't want to talk about because they just want to fish, and that's their way they eat, and that's the way they make their money. And green lights, underwater, traveling under really fast or coming out and zipping off through the sky. It's been a few reports like that near Montauk, and a lot of talk of green lights too. That was one of the weird fringe things that I was looking into that wasn't really directly related to the story. So I did a whole lot of looking into everything Montauk, not just what you would find in the original like Montauk Project book series. But yeah, all of this stuff I love, and there's a good deal of old history and hauntings and other things people have come up with around town. So I think the land is why. That's my main point. Is I think there's something to the land itself. It's like
And I think Montauk even has its own ghost ship, right? I think a ship, the ghost ship's supposed to be seen off the coast.
that
Every
was
now
what
and
they thought the Philadelphia experiment was going to show up off the coast, as the legend said, the USS Eldridge. So, but yeah, that there might be a ghost ship too. There was a lot of shipwrecks. There was like 200 shipwrecks there. There's a famous ghost called Abigail that was from a Christmas Eve wreck back in like 1802 or even like 1700s, and she climbed up to the rocks and then passed away in the lighthouse. So they have all the people that have worked there over the years have all these accounts of her and the lighthouse being haunted. So who knows? There's another one that's a really cool one that a couple people have seen. That this really tall thing with a like being that's like 7-8 feet tall with a tiny head is what they all say, and it's floating along like over the bluffs and sometimes over the road, and it has a lantern and a boat hook. And they said two people that were like having wine on the beach, like a little picnic, guy and a girl, they were just down there, and this thing came past and didn't even look at them. It just floated right past them. So I thought that was really interesting. Like, I never heard of this. Nobody else really said anything, but I added every single thing I could find in there.
You definitely got some neighborhood cryptids going
There's some
around.
weird stuff going on there for sure.
Yeah.
But now it's like nature is taking it over there, and it's nothing like it used to be, but it's still very, I don't know, it's an odd place, as far as the way it feels when you're there. But the radar tower is the saddest part because it is crumbling. The tower itself is strong. It's meant to take like a direct hit. But
I've noticed that, looking at some of the videos over time that you and others have taken, you can definitely see, nature is reclaiming
Yeah,
Definitely some parts of it. That's the sad part about it. All the time marches on,
true.
and it takes out a lot of stuff. Yeah, but it's very important why people like you and others are documenting this stuff for future, things.
Thanks.
I've said that so many times in the past. No story, no matter what it is, should ever be lost to history. And if we can
Yes.
document these things, even if you're not, just video or photographs, or of course, like you do, writing about them
Yep.
and all that. So very, very important that we document these things for future generations, because one day in the near future it may not be there at all. A lot of
Yeah.
different things can happen.
I can't wait to share. But I got like talking to a bunch of people, going there a lot, and then digging in as much as I can. Hopefully, this next only what I'm going to do is just finish what I started basically, and then beyond that, I plan on jamming everything I can in there. I'm even going through the old internet writings from like the early 2000s and covering all the stories from all of the sources that people, putting them in order, time order, just so all of it's documented, like what people were saying back then in the early days of the internet. Because there was a lot of stuff that's been lost to time. I printed out some of the internet, which is crazy, but you can't, some of those things I go to look for, they're just gone, the early days. You can't even find them on Wayback Machine or Internet Archives or anything like that. But some are available, but I'm going to, put together as much as I can from the old school too.
So, I got a comment here. Says, let's see, let me get it up here. It says, I thought Montauk was a part of Operation Paperclip, with the Nazi scientists harvesting adrenochrome for kids that have been kidnapped. Yeah, that's part of this legend, is it not?
Yeah, the bases themselves were definitely on record. There was 3 Army bases for World War II that got turned into 3 paperclip sites, and that was Fort Upton, Camp Upton, which became Brookhaven National Labs. Then they had right down the road Yaphank, which was Camp Siegfried. That was there since 1933, before World War II. They had, so they had a strong presence there. And then Plum Island was Fort Terry. That became the Plum Island Animal Disease Research Center. And then Camp Hero was a World War II gun emplacements, like big giant battleship guns with bunkers. And then that became the Montauk Air Force Station. But they brought paperclip scientists to all 3. And Montauk was going to be the original. Camp Hero was supposed to be the original site of the animal disease. There was a huge cattle ranch next door. That's like the oldest cattle ranch in the U.S. Actually, that's actually where cowboys came from in 1600s, from Montauk, not from the West in the 1800s. It was the oldest cattle ranch. It's called Depala Ranch, and they thought about it like, why put in? We're going to study bovine disease next door to the cattle ranch. Doesn't make sense. But
mad cow disease.
Yep, that's what they were studying. So it's like, why do it next to?
Yeah. But paperclip is tied in also to the super secret soldier program, that went on supposedly with a lot, and it's still supposed to this day. It's still ongoing.
Yeah, especially an idea like the very beginning ideas of it were definitely brought, through on that level. But it took many years to do that. But what I have is a lot of electronic mind control, which is microwave mind control. The Sage radar at Montauk, you see right there behind me, that's a microwave radar. And, the first microwave, some of the first radars were at Montauk in World War II. They were like steel towers. But some of the signal corps, which is part of the Army that does all the cabling and tunnels for communications, they noticed that they could hear the microwave in their head, like buzzing, a click, a pop, or a hiss. And over the years, some guy wrote a paper in 1961, Alan Frey. It's called the microwave auditory effect. That's it's a well-known paper. But this was developed over time. And then there was a document, Pandora. That one is insane. That pretty much says everything we're talking about right on paper. So I'll get to that too. And that's like, they wanted to combine electronic mind control, which is microwave broadcast upon people, with psychedelics, which is the LSD rooms at Montauk.
Last episode of Hunting the Shadows last Wednesday night, I had Jessica Jones on here, and we actually talked about psychic warfare. How they have remote viewers, they have other types of psychics and all out there.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of big interest by them, and a lot of the alphabet companies, I like to call them,
Sure.
that use and mutilate these kind of people for certain aspects of it. But do you know, Ryan, what's so freaky about it? And I mentioned that to her as well. There's evidence that they may use some of this stuff to assassinate people, to take
Yeah.
out targets that they need to, or
Yep. They
like
clearly.
using their terminology, they like to make people ineffective. In other words, they can do things to their mind.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Well, yeah, that was a major part of everything too. There was always different aspects like ascertain information from people or interrogation. There was, the going out and the assassination. The like setting people up for different tasks and things later on. That was a big part of it. But then they had people who were just really good at it, and they kind of had more freedom and free reign if they were like, for example, the guys at RSI, SRI, Stanford Research Institute.
and if you
Stargate,
get
but
psychic energy to the brain, to the human brain, you could reverse some of the neurons. You could do stuff with the chemical parts of the brain. You could cause aneurysms. You could cause blood clots if necessary, and do stuff like that.
yeah,
You could take somebody out that way without even,
there
if
was
you had the power to do it without even any kind of technology. Okay, that
yeah.
way.
I just saw another one from it was on the CIA website. Actually, they released so many, but they termed psychoenergetics as things as they had it grouped under it like telekinesis or psychokinesis, things that can affect matter basically. So they also had on there like telemetry, where you can touch an object and read its past, maybe like Akashic record or rock record or whatever. And they had another one on there. I think it was telepathy, which didn't make sense because you're not touching something. I mean, for them to categorize it like that, but that was an interesting way that they broke it
That
down.
may definitely be a battleground for future warfare.
Oh yeah, they're big
Uh,
into tunnels now too. They were doing renting underground spaces to do like
And you know what?
training.
Here's another thing about that, Brian. If you're, that good at with your psychic abilities, you could take out drones. You could crash them
You'd
or
have to do
draw
like an
off
EM
course or whatever. You could actually manipulate things like that. That's wild to think about.
short
We're
amount.
getting into real comic book stuff here,
Yeah,
but
yeah, definitely.
a lot of
But
this stuff is science fact. I mean, it's not,
a lot of stuff that became science and technology started with comics and movies and books and stuff like that. Crazy ideas that turned into something, or just the ideas there, and now somebody wants to make it happen. You just saying it. But yeah, I've definitely seen that. There's a couple comic characters that can affect technology, with their mind. So, and other people can talk to the earth, like a geomancer, I think one was called. So there's something for everything, but there's a lot of psychic abilities that are kind of, I think, yet to
that's what interested
categorize.
me many years ago when I first found out about the Philadelphia experiment. And this was many, many, many years ago. I found a book by Vincent Gaddis called Invisible Horizons. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it's
No, I gotta
fascinating.
check
Book.
that out.
If you ever get a copy of it, you need to try to find it. It is a great book. Vincent Gaddis was a very good researcher. And these are the mysteries of the sea, and of course he included the Philadelphia experiment in that, and
Oh wow,
Montauk, and other things too. Yeah,
very cool.
and what fascinated me about this was not just the weird woo effect of all this stuff, but the psychological effect it had upon these people.
Yes.
Supposedly,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
driving them insane, all that stuff.
There's a known like a Montauk effect almost that. So I was like just calling it, but like when people start reading this story and diving into it, there's just something that happens to almost a lot of people. Like I'm not saying everybody, but some people have familiarities, synchronicities. They feel like they've been there, or they start dreaming of it. It's just something that tends to happen to a lot of people, and that's why so many people around the world, either are involved or say they are involved or feel they're involved, or maybe just think, well, like maybe I was involved. They don't know. But the point is that they may have not have been there or even been born in that time. But when you're talking about a time travel project or something like that, I guess all of that stuff's off the table, because a ripple, you split off into different parallel timelines or different dimensions or 20 and back. There's so many possibilities. So it's best, to listen to each person's account on it, because that's how the story grows in that direction. And I guess I figure, I have my own experiences and stuff, and a whole bunch, but I've kind of left them out because I feel like my job is to like dig into everything I could find that'll back up or use to corroborate or even to hold against, check out, fact check, whatever I could find. I wanted to get out there so people could always use it to look up, with their ideas, run it against them, or research, whatever it might be. And to just document it. Like you said, it's pretty much just documenting it. And I do have my own opinions that I share along the way. And I definitely think like way out there sometimes. But when I'm presenting it to everybody, I kind of hold back some of that stuff and save it for
Let me take
good conversations.
a quick story of something that happened to me, Brian. I want to share this with you. This has been many years ago when I was a kid. I was probably, I might have been 15, 16 years old or something. I had a dream, a very vivid dream, that I was riding down this street. It was a residential street,
Mhm.
And on one side was a kind of a high hill on one side, and the other side was lower, And we were driving down this residential street, and I was not driving. I was with somebody. They were driving. We're going down this street, and I could see this street very clearly in my mind. I still can see it. It left that kind of a vivid impression on me. Okay.
Yeah.
And usually you forget your dreams when you wake up,
Yeah.
after your first cup of coffee, they're usually gone. That's it.
You got to stay there.
I feel this day. And what impressed me about this is coming down off the hill, this little boy, young boy on a red bicycle come flying down the hill and right in front of what we're doing. And I remember in the dream, I said, stop, because it hit the little boy, Well, this was so vivid. And make a long story short, I actually was on a trip with someone later on. And what it was, we were going to a town that I had never been to. I'd never been to this town, but it was not far away, but it was sort of like a couple of towns over. I'd never been to this town, okay? And we're driving down, and I tell you what it was. When I was a kid, I had a job where we would go pick up upholstery and do re-upholster stuff, and all that. And I would go with them to pick these up, and that's what I was doing there. And it was like a summer job. Anyway, we're all of a sudden in the same road that I seen in my dream. I'm on that same road. Oh. And the hill's over here on my right, and the lower part is down here. And we're riding on. I said, my God, I've been here before,
Oh, yeah.
I recognize, never had supposed to ever been there, okay? But I said, I've been here before. I've seen this before. And so I stopped the guy. I said, slow down. Stop. And by the time I did that, he slowed down, and a little boy on a red bicycle flew down the around the house, okay? And here's the cap for it, okay? The guy was like, how did you know that was going to happen, I said, I dreamed it. Anyway, weird. I've never had anything like that happen since in that way. But here's
that's a good one.
Did I change the timeline by saving that little boy's life, or keeping him from getting hit, or did I screw around with
I don't know. Maybe I think you can access everything at once. Like if there is no time, it's all at once. On a higher dimension. So maybe you could just kind of access it or read it in a way, or get glimpses of it somehow in a dream. Maybe you went there, you elevated a dimension in your dream and then came back. Who knows? I mean, I don't know exactly either, but I've definitely had those too. I guess they call them like a precog dream or something. I had one with a weird airplane crash, and then there was one with like a tsunami I saw, and then the next day on the news, I saw the exact same thing. It was me in the dream. They had pulled me aside and they were looking through my phone.
I've had that happen. I've had stuff like that happen.
But yeah, there's been plenty of those.
That's freaky. Freaks you out when that does happen.
Yep. Deja vu.
It's
all
just
of it.
Like the phone rings, you know who it is.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Or you like you ever sing a part of a song exactly to the lyric, turn on the radio, and it's like playing like in line.
I've had that happen. You start all of a sudden you get thinking about this song. Maybe, and it
could be my
stays in your
feelings, I
mind,
guess.
and later on that day, you hear it playing somewhere or something,
Yep.
Synchronicity.
Interesting.
I've said this before, Ryan. I stand by this statement. There is no really such thing as coincidence in this world.
Yeah.
I think everything happens for a reason somehow. Although it's real freaky. It does that sometimes. After
so many, you stop, eventually you just let go of the coincidence thing. I think like once, maybe it's a coincidence, but beyond that, it just happens too often, especially with these topics. Literally, just things pile up, synchronicities can pile up in one day on a topic. And I'm going to definitely write down a few examples because I've had people ask an example, and there's just so many so often. But I think it would be good to try to make a good example. A couple of them. I have a few in mind, but yeah, there's so much to Montauk.
Movie, remember that movie, Men Staring at Goats?
Oh
Remember
yeah,
that movie?
that was about the Stargate and RSI.
It's got to be freaky when you
SRI.
have scientific experiment going on with stuff like that.
Oh yeah, that was the guys I was talking about having free reign. Like they really could do whatever they wanted, as long as it was they had such a budget for, crazy stuff. So, and all they really needed was like pencils and paper.
Stuff like that definitely happened in Montauk. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think the SRI might have been one of the first, but Montauk, once they started doing it, the universities and other bases, parapsychology stuff, I'm sure Montauk, it was always said that they did. And there were some projects at the time, Project Grill Flame, was it Sunstreak, or a couple of those. So yeah, they definitely could have been involved. And the way Montauk closed in 1969 in the general drawdown of all the Air Force bases, but then they stayed there for another 13 years until 1983. They weren't supposed to be there, and they were taken over by this thing called TAC, which is AdTAC, and it's like the Black Berets of the Air Force. And they're just supposed to like usher through their closing, and watch the base as they close. But they were there for 13 years under that mission. So it was there was something else going on below, I believe, at that point. They had just finished the underground base there, because in the 60s, they couldn't build an underground base or do a lot of this stuff. They did an early MK Ultra trial in 61, but they were one of the high-tech, very most needed radar sites on the East Coast, one of the top radar sites, and they were very busy. They were like NORAD. They had stuff to talk to the Texas towers. They were like oil platforms offshore with radars. And then that aircraft with the dish on the bottom, the EC-121, it's like a spy aircraft, looks like a dinner plate on the bottom. They had radars at Montauk to talk to one of 4 on the East Coast. And they had all of these different things at Montauk, not just the radars. There was a whole bunch of radars on Radar Hill too, not just the one big tower. There were 5 other towers, 4 other metal towers, like cylindrical metal towers with inflatable bubble radomes. So this place was very important. And so, in the 60s, all they had was fallout shelters, which I found on record, because they said there was nothing down there. But now we have the World War II tunnel.
Yeah, coastal defense too, as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
So there's plenty down there and on record. And now we can speculate where they went in the 70s when they did that parapsychology stuff, and anything else. We can see where they may have used for a starting point with these fallout shelters, because they were obviously underground. I even have a couple pictures of the entrances, so they go down beneath the buildings. There was like 5 or 6, so there's good starting points all over the base, underground, big square rooms that are already hollowed out to expand, or maybe drill a straight shaft really deep down, elevator. But I'm just trying to figure out how they got a lot of the equipment in, and where are all the ventilation shafts, because it has to breathe. That's one of the most important things.
That's what somebody said about the underground bases, stuff like that. You first look for the elevator shafts, the indications, because they're going to definitely have elevators.
Yep.
In these places.
Yeah, to get, if it's going to go a substantial distance down, I don't think they could just build under like a fallout shelter either, because like at some point you keep digging beneath a building, it's going to cave in. So, but if you dig like straight down, like a circular pencil shaped shaft all the way down, what big that elevator could fit in, I think like the ground would hold up pretty good, and you could go deep. Montauk has.
Have you ever had any kind of a lot of seismic activity around there, or you think?
No, but that's funny. I was just looking that up, and one of the only earthquake ever on Long Island was ever happen on Long Island itself. We felt a couple other earthquakes here that were somewhere else, but it was right near Montauk, in Montauk almost. It's called the Napeague Stretch. It's like a sandbar that connects Montauk Island to Long Island. Used to be its own island like 2,000 years ago, Montauk. But is a sandbar there called the Napeague Stretch, and it's technically in Montauk. But that's the only place an earthquake has ever happened on Long Island. It wasn't a very big one, but it's interesting though.
I just, one of the reasons I asked that, is there are underground areas there, and you'd have to be very careful if you ever go into something like that, because if there's been any kind of seismic activity of any kind, that may have made it a little faulty. You'd have to be very careful. You never know what you might walk into in that kind of a situation.
Yeah. There's supposed to be caves down there.
Kind of thing. You wouldn't want to be in that situation.
there's supposed to be like these natural caves in the bluffs, and I've been hearing the rumors for years and years. They were supposed to use them for prohibition, hiding booze in the bluffs, and all these rumors of ancient cave systems down there, which doesn't make sense because Long Island isn't supposed to have caves.
Yeah.
But like
Prohibition
I said,
caves and all that.
Montauk was its island of its own, so it has a slightly different setup, as far as geology. But yeah, I don't know. We found a cave once on the beach when we were down there. Me and Danielle were down there like in the beginning of our YouTube channel, and we saw this cave. I stuck the camera in, and it kind of went off to the left, and I swear I saw like a bottle jammed up in the mud, like the bottom of a liquor bottle or something, like an old booze. But we went back to try to look in this cave, and actually I think that's the one time we went with Peter Moon, one of the original authors. Our friend Michael, Dark Hour Paranormal, Danielle, me and Peter Moon went to Montauk and drove all around with them, and we climbed the bluffs, we went to the radar. We went all over the place that day, and one of the places we were showing him is this opening we found, because that's what I originally contacted him about, is to ask him about something he wrote about these caves. So it was ironic. I'm like, let me show you what we found, and it was gone. There was a big boulder jammed right in the cave. So the only way I knew I filmed it that day, but I had to put the two videos next to each other and compare them, and I saw that there was a huge boulder in the opening somehow. So I was like, no, my only chance. But another time in the winter, we were looking over the bluffs. Our friend Elena was over from the UK, Mike's friend Elena, and we were showing her.
Intentional on somebody's part, and if they,
what was that? I didn't hear that last part. But we were looking over the edge of the bluff, and there was water flowing in and out of the cliff itself somehow with the tide. And we're like, that's got to be a cave, but we couldn't get down there because the water was already pretty high up against the bluffs, the Atlantic Ocean. So we're not trying to go in there in the freezing. It was 4 degrees that day too. So, but yeah, it's a wild place in general. I mean, you're out there in the middle of nowhere kind of, but there's so much, there's a shark nursery off the coast there. The great whites are all born there. So it's a pretty interesting place. They have a great white that swims around the planet.
That don't sound good.
It has its own social media.
That definitely.
Yeah, they have sharks, everything in Montauk.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I was just wondering about that boulder. Then it's kind of strange how it ended up there. In that one place.
The boat, yeah. There was another boat that beached itself there too. To confuse the matter, there was like a huge battleship that was headed to Philadelphia Naval Yard that got stuck on the beach at Montauk, and they had to it was there for a couple months stuck, which was, I never heard that story until recently, but just to add to the confusion of the Philadelphia experiment story.
That's interesting confusion thing going on there, isn't it? We've talked about that before, Ryan. When it comes with the government, sometimes it seems like they're very good at not only misinformation, but misdirection, I like to call it. They like to get your attention off of one thing and put it on another. And sometimes they do drastic measures to do that,
Yep. Part of it is shortening our attention span in general over time. But, the other part of it is they are giving us a lot of good stuff to look at. Like, look over here, look over there. So
I've had people show me, photos of military complexes and installations, and I look at it and see what's really going on there. Not what they may want you to see, but what's really going on. Just like Area 51 and other places like that. And, you and I both know there's an Area 51 in the Atlantic Ocean too, by the way.
I love staring at the
Bermuda down that way.
Yeah, the ocean floor has some fascinating stuff.
That's part of the cover. You know what? And I've talked about this before, and I'm gonna get into this tonight. This is another deep thing for another show.
Sure.
But a lot of these things we see, Brian, like the CIA that you and I know, the FBI, is not the real CIA and not the real FBI. That's the public part of what we know. We don't see what's really behind it. It's like the old West towns you used to see in the movies. They were facades. You had you had the outside, and you walk around to the back, and there's nothing but some boards holding it up.
Yeah.
That's the way these guys work.
You could see some of that we couldn't see by looking back in time. Like at the time they didn't share that Sidney Gottlieb was the head of MK Ultra, until Congress found that box of papers and it all came out, in Congress and got exposed. So like in hindsight, you may see some of the stuff they're doing now. Later, only some of it. And yeah, you're right. That's what they're made for. They're made to be not seen, basically. And I never try to, use anything current or talk about anything like that, really, because everything I'm using is on public record already. I'm just kind of stitching it together, finding it, and putting it in order and making some connections, here and there, and sharing the parts that are important. But they're the ones that put all this stuff out there. A lot of them. I got some really cool documents from the FBI site, the Air Force, and there's been a lot of document dumps in the last few years, which is exciting, but they're like 500 pages each. You got to go through them. It's like,
well, let's see, another
it's a
thing,
lot. It hurts your eyes.
another thing they had going, that J. Edgar Hoover was very interested in the Men in Black. He knew about them and heard about them.
Yeah.
By the way, have you had any reports of Men in Black being seen around Montauk or anything connection with that? Or
not that I know of, no. And you would think that would be involved in this story at some point, over all these years, the way it's developed. But no, I've never heard that before, nor have I know anybody else that had any experiences with the Men in Black. But
I had a run in with them one time, and I would advise you, if you ever run into them, stay away from them.
Oh yeah,
They're
that's
bad
what I heard.
news. Definitely.
Yeah, I heard it's never a comfortable experience. I mean, like, you don't want to have to meet them. That's for sure. It's strange. Like if I got any
They pop up in some of the very strangest places, like
they do. There's more to them for sure. They're not just really pale dudes in suits and hats there, and they're not, of course, like the movie, but may have one of those pens though. I mean, yeah, this technology has been talked about for so many years in science fiction. A lot of it is come to be in the past 20 years. A lot of the things we were talking about as conspiracy are now well known. Like,
well, that's what we talked about last time you were here.
Yeah.
The technology that we have right now in the public, it's like 100 years more behind what the government actually has.
Oh yeah.
And we keep talking about disclosure, and which is a good thing if we ever get it. I don't think we ever will that way. I don't think we'll ever get true disclosure, because they're not going to share their secrets with us, because that would take the power away from them. That's where their power lies in their secrets.
Yeah.
And
they
hold on to. But we keep trying. I mean, that's
yeah, exactly. Some things are the unknown.
What they're up to, and a lot of stuff.
Yeah, some things are the unknown unknowns. The things we don't know. Like, we don't even know we don't know them. So we don't know what we're missing. Basically, that was a rummy quote. But there's things that they will release because of all the pressure. Of course, like all this has been, like, they've been putting up the pressure for years. So they'll throw out some.
Any good researcher knows, Brian, just like you've been researching all this stuff. Any good researcher knows that when you look at something, you got to ask yourself, what am I not seeing here?
Yeah.
That's another thing you got to look at,
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of like little clues, follow the money, or what am I not seeing, and reading between the lines and the lies. And, then you have to ask yourself too, where am I getting the information? If it's coming from any mainstream source, any figure of authority, basically, you have to ask yourself, is that information really trustworthy, or is it compromised to begin with, because it's coming from a place of power? So, I've never really been a person to like dive into big ideas that everybody's following at once, basically, because I feel like you don't want to run with the herd. If it's a herd, if it's just a stampede and you're trying to get away, that's one thing. But if you're just meandering without a direction, I never like those kind of mass ideas where people dive in, right away. And those are the trend things that happen. They come and go really fast. Some of these ideas, once something, people blow it out of the water, or they change their mind, it kind of fades away. And I think that's the part of it. That's the fun part of this. It's like, that's what I enjoy about it too. The conspiracy stuff is like, I love those little things that come and go, and the crazy theories. I love thinking about them, but you have to ask yourself. You have to have a meter of what you believe in, what you just like to watch, and etc. least that's what I do.
That's why
All right.
that makes it all so very fascinating. It never gets old. It's always changing.
That's right.
Something new is always going on.
Yeah.
That's sticky. I call it the sticky part of it. That's what sticks you to it.
Yep.
Yeah,
It's the fun
absolutely.
part too. I mean,
Talk a little
the
bit about your
mystery.
book that you got coming up next. Have you got a title for it yet, or what?
Yeah, I have a couple that I'm kicking around, and I'm also working with them how they look. Because I used to do graphics, just the text layout and stuff. So I'm not exactly. But what it is the second part of the archives. Like in the first book, our field reports, that's all our trips to Montauk, stopped at number 30. That's when it became a park in 2002. So it started in the 80s and went all the way through the 90s to a place becoming a park. And then all of the new ones, I have 45 more. So number 31 to 75 is all through, a couple of TV shows all the way through YouTube for the couple of years of YouTube, and all the people from all over the world that we went with and all the things we found. And so that's just one aspect. Then I have like 30 more people, interviews, some big names and some important local official, some, other explorers, all kinds of cool stuff from all over, from different people. That's all anonymous people, but I know who they are, but I'm protecting all of them. And then regular chapters, again, I have more documents, blueprints, maps, pictures, tons of pictures. And I found a whole bunch of new stuff. I just can't wait to share. And that's pretty much it. I'm going to wrap up everything, share the rest of what I have, and make a few, conclusions of what I think, but leave it for you guys to decide. And I just want to share the rest of what I have. So it's like I stopped kind of halfway on purpose because I just couldn't fit it all to begin with. So this should going to make sure I fit it all in the second one.
Well, some people are intimidated by a War and Peace size book.
Yeah. This is definitely. I mean, it's like the kind of thing you keep on the shelf maybe and pull out, check a few things and put it back. Who knows after you read it? But I'd be happy if there's plenty to research so that you could just pull it off and look at a picture. Oh yeah, that's right. Put it back. Or, hey, I want to check a map or read it again or whatever.
This is going to kind of bring us up to date. Is that what this second?
Oh yeah, it's going to bring it up to date, and I'm going to give everything else that I have that I didn't fit in the first one, all the new stuff I found, which is I found more stuff this year than ever before since I wrote the book. I've gotten contacted like 10 times a day by different people, new people. And I talked to all of them, we all exchanged stuff, and I just have so much to share. I'm just going to make it this second half, and that's it. That's the archives. So I'm not doing a third or nothing. It's going to be all fit into the second one. I'm not trying to string it along, but I definitely need to share the rest of what I got. So that's pretty much it.
Right. That sounds like you definitely got it laid out the way you want it to go. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're going to definitely be looking for that because the story is not finished yet. Definitely not. It's got a long ways to go yet.
Yeah, that's what I hope other people will just pick up from here and do it, their own way. Go there themselves, research it themselves, or they feel like they're a part of it. I like to see, hear their stories. I'm just hoping that, people will pick up and do it their own way from here on out, whatever they want. I'm going to buy their books when they make them. So everything MONTAUK I love. So I'll be reading everybody else's stuff from here on out after this one. I'm still going to be going there and making videos. I'm probably not going to record the field reports anymore the way I used to with so much detail, because now, I'm getting to the point. I tried to walk every square inch of the property, and there's still places I haven't been, but we're getting there. We're getting to finally where we've walked like most of this 468 acres at least of the property and documented a lot of it. So we have a lot of ideas to make stuff.
I forget who it was that said, it was a very famous quote, if I have seen further than most, it's because I've stood on the shoulders of giants. And you are definitely one of those giants, Brian. You're going to have people that's going to refer back to your books for a long, long time. They're going to say, hey, this is what Brian had already talked about, or they refer back to you. That's neat to think that you can have that kind of impact on the future.
That would be the best. I mean, I'd be totally happy with that. If nothing else, it's not like if it doesn't go anywhere else, that's perfect. That's enough to make me happy. That's what I'm trying to say. So thank you. That's very nice of you. Other than that, I mean, I want to spend more time watching all my friends' videos, which because doing all this stuff, it's taking like I'm doing it like a lot of the day, taking a lot of my time, and I sacrifice the things I used to do. So I'm just doing
Well,
this
you
for
know,
now. I'm gonna go back later.
you get deep into research on something, and I found this to be that way over the years I've done that. You tend to focus on that alone, and all your concentration goes on that. And it's good to step back once in a while, and breathe
Oh yeah,
fresh air and say, "Hey, let me look at something else here. Let me take another look at what somebody else is doing over here and all that." It doesn't hurt to do that. That enhances your own work
yeah,
and also your research as well.
that's a great point. Yeah, you. I know walking away, actually, just even a short walk away from the computer or whatever you're working on. Uh, I was working on
Mhm.
this computer here, but yeah, walking away for a moment, everything comes together in your mind. Get some fresh air, walk for a few minutes, circulate your blood. Just you can sit here and lose track of time. That's for sure. It's definitely not good for you. But going to Montauk always makes me feel better too, because you could probably walk all day when you go there. And if you've been sitting for a while, that's a great way to get out there and get
Uh,
some exercise. For me, at least. But
But when you get a hold of something like this complex research, with stuff like Montauk and other things like that, it's kind of a hard baby to turn loose. You know, you,
mhm,
you you get really, like I said earlier, it gets real sticky. And it's hard to put it down. And you get, you put all your focus on it.
yeah,
But it's good to step back every now and then and say, where I'm at, looking at the big picture itself. We don't want to
that's
lose sight of that, because that's the best thing is don't stay in the box.
yep,
Get outside once in a while
yeah.
and
I
check
mean,
other thing out. Yeah.
I took a about a 12-year break from Montauk when I stopped. All through the 90s, we went there so many times, researched. Even then, when I was working in the office, in an office doing graphics and stuff through the 2000s, internet was just starting to explode. I spent years researching on the internet because it was all new. It was like this stuff I hadn't seen, so I was printing, it all and recording it all, saving JPEGs. But then I stopped going there for like 12 years. And the only thing that brought me back in was like one of my old videos I gave to a guy from a newspaper. That History Channel was asking if you know anybody that's been there. He said, "You got to talk to my friend Brian." He showed them the tape, or told them I gave him a tape. They called me and then, had me go in that show. And I didn't want to
Well,
talk
it
on the
happens
show,
sometimes. You
but
have to work up another head of steam sometimes.
yep. And
It
they
always.
had me research. And that's once I started finding all that stuff, it just pulled me right back in. I was like, researching like crazy. So that's what I was getting at. They kind of made me do some research, and then I just got,
Mhm.
into down a whole new part of Montauk that I never did before, which is the actual military
Well,
history.
as you go on and you get older, your perspective changes a lot of times on things.
Yeah,
And that can go with your research as well. What do you see yourself doing 10 years from now? Do you think
I have a lot
you're
of.
going to be doing some other kind of research? Or are you going to still be looking at this, or?
That's funny. I'd like to finish all the stuff I've been doing my whole life. I didn't just research Montauk and do get involved, but I have like 12 other kind of things or topics and stuff that I did that I have like a ton of research pictures, and I'm gonna make something out of each of those just to finalize it and do something with it. It's like finishing up these things seems cool, like what I've already did a lot. And yeah, I'm sure I keep changing like stuff I really absorb like about every 5 years. I keep finding something and just dive into it. But Montauk's always been there though. It's not like it replaced Montauk. It just was like another thing on my pile. But I'll always find interest and do stuff. I've been doing, my own, kind of making my own way my whole life, as far as ever since I left like a structured job. I've been free floating, freelance, and making my own things to
Yeah.
do. So we'll see what
Well,
happens.
when
I don't know where I'm
you're
gonna be.
doing, you're not doing your research on this, you're not writing. What else you like to do? You have hobbies like photographing, or
Oh
are
yeah,
you
I
into
mean,
photography and video and stuff
I've
like
been
that?
taking pictures my whole life. I did 2 years in high school so I could use a dark room and photography, and then I took in community college. I took another 2 years of photography just so I could use the dark room. I was a prolific, going through film like crazy and printing. I have stacks of so many black and white, color, time lapse, astrophotography. I was huge into astronomy too. And then music, I was in a band, played drums. I had DJ stuff for a while. I was doing like ethnobotany, like gardening, all kinds of crazy things over the years that I kind of just dove into and learned and then moved on, I guess. And I just have a lot of stuff more than that. I draw and paint and, do
I
kinds of
still,
art stuff when I
still
can.
got my old timer from the dark room over here somewhere, man.
Yeah.
I always just play around with that, and of course, you share a thing definitively with me with astronomy. I've always been involved in doing that as well. That's fascinating
Nice.
stuff too.
Oh
When
yeah.
you can put both of those together, and you got photography and astronomy together, that's neat too. I've
Yeah.
never actually really done that, but I've always
Oh.
wanted to try it. Yeah.
Back when you had film, you used to be able to, like 35 millimeter camera, you could put this, they call it a time lapse trigger, and you screw it on the top of the button, and it's like a little cable, and you hold the shutter open, and you can leave it out there for hours. And the stars, as the Earth turns, you see the stars, constellations like
Oh
leave a
yeah.
trail. So, but when I didn't have the trigger, I'd use a piece of tape and just like hold it down, Scotch tape. But yeah, I love time lapse. I used to take cars flying by on the highway, and like you see the lights smearing, or like sparklers or glow
Oh yeah.
sticks, anything that lights up. You could write your name with the moon if you hold the shutter open. So I kind of
Yeah,
miss film.
time lapse is fun to play around with,
Yeah,
definitely.
but
I've
now you can
seen
do it
my
digitally.
favorite one is when they take the constellation, you see them slowly, the wheel moving,
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
Polaris, the North
yeah,
Star.
that's
Yeah,
pretty neat.
you could do that here because it's
Yeah.
whatever your latitude is up. North Star. That's the
I
one you
remember
want
I
to
was
look
a
at.
kid, and when I was a kid, I would cut grass and all that, made some money, and bought my first telescope with that when I was about 14 or something like that. And
Oh,
I'll
cool.
never forget the thrill of actually seeing the moons of Mars for the first time, or the rings of Saturn.
Yeah,
That was wild,
the moons of
Uh,
Jupiter.
you've seen it in books, but to actually see it with your own eyes is a
It's
completely
amazing.
different
Yeah,
thing.
we had a big one, observatory telescope at school, but you had to go in this club at night. It's like the astronomy club. But I went in that just to see it because the lens was like 12 inches or something. It was huge. And when you look at Jupiter, it was like this big, and you can see the red spot
Yeah.
really clear, and the 4 largest moons. But I used to lay out there and just look at the stars all the time. So I've seen a few things in the sky through my life, and I definitely, I know what a satellite is. I know I live under like like a military airspace kind of. So I know what like a lot of things look like in the sky. So I don't make a big deal out of them, but you can always see satellites, but there's definitely stuff up there a lot. If you look, you'll see something if you just wait, long enough.
That's
You
what
can
we
see
always,
something up
when
there.
I was a kid, we always used to first track some of the very first satellites. We would track them because we
Yep,
knew this light would always go in a straight line.
that's right.
That was
Yeah,
that's what we knew what it was.
that's how you
Uh,
know.
but now when you get into the UFO thing, and I've seen a lot of those, I'm sure you have too.
Yep,
Over time, they don't follow that precept. They usually go very erratically.
yeah. Speed
I
up,
remember
slow
one time
down.
I was talking about this the other day, and I'd forgotten about this. I was on the way to work one morning, and I was stopped at a stop sign, a red light, uptown traffic light. And I was waiting for it to change. I was looking up, and I used to go to work very early in the morning. Okay, it was like still dark, and I was looking up, and I knew where the planets and all that. I knew, what Venus and all that, where they're supposed to
Yep.
be. And I see this star, Brian. I'm looking at it, and I said, "Well, that's not Venus. It shouldn't be there. That's
Yeah.
And while I'm looking at it, it goes zoom. It just gone like that.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
that was it. Like, Ricky,
Yeah.
Um,
The classic, zip off. That's kind of like the one on the video did, but it went straight up, so it got smaller and smaller. But it seemed to change from like round to like a football as it went upward, like it was almost changing shape. I mean, there's a cool one that one time after work, I was working as a waiter somewhere, and the waiters, after work they hang out, so they're like, we were stopped at somebody's house quick, and I had this thought in my head, take a picture of the moon right now. So I did. I don't know why, and I took a picture. And then when I looked, there was a silver disc under the moon, and like you can see the moon shining on the top and like shadows on the bottom. So I zoomed in on it, and it looks like a UFO disc, but it has like a tank turret sticking out of the top of it. It's so weird looking. I've never seen anything like it, but I don't know what it was. There was nothing there. There was no lights, like blinking FAA lights. It was just this weird shape.
we were talking about that the other day. I've seen a lot of flaky things on the moon. I've seen lights that should not be there. And
Yeah,
you hear
heard
that
of
old
it.
saying, "Oh, it's probably meteorites," but meteorites do not hit the moon from this direction. Uh, there's something else with that.
Ye-
But it makes me very suspicious of the moon, Brian.
ye-
There's something like going on there, you know.
Yeah. I think there's old, what was it, Galileo? They had those old sketchbooks. They used to see flashing lights a lot. And even the old astronomers, like they used to write down that they saw stuff like that. Weird, like puffs of smoke coming out of the moon or like flashing, strobe lights. So seems like it's been happening forever.
Somebody asked a good question the other day. I'll throw this one at you. Yeah, why haven't we been back to the moon? There's been no manned missions.
I always like that one theory where we went
Why? Why is that?
and found something there and we're told not to ever
Did we
come
encounter
back.
something that told us you better not come back or what?
There's all the theories. There's the straight up Hollywood theory. There's the one that we went and told not to come back. That, there's all different ones. But what I like is the early space missions, so many UFO videos like Gemini, some of the early shuttle they're filming out the window practically, but like Challenger, what was that really good one? STS, I forgot the name, STS-19. It was on Discovery. And like, there's this object and they fire something at it and it quickly makes like an acute angle turn, like evasive action, and flies away from what was about to hit it. It's like, they shot at it. And then Columbia had that one with the bubble. And then they have the tether incident where one giant disc is out there and the tether drifts away and there's all these discs. There's a whole bunch of like UFO videos basically from the early space flights, which I like to believe are actual flights that they took. I mean, they didn't actually go to the moon on those. They were just, somewhere in between. So, but the Van Allen belts are 3 X-rays. Did you know that Van Allen, it's only the equivalent of 3 X-rays.
Anything like that, they're not gonna turn it loose. Definitely not. And I'm sure they do have it. I'm sure without doubt they got it, but they're not gonna let us. They're not gonna share it with us. Definitely.
Yeah,
but
whatever it is.
there's been a lot of weird stuff since the very beginning of the space age, of reports of seeing these things. I mean, whether or not they got it on photographs or what, but the reports are there. Definitely, there's a lot of questions more than answers on a lot of stuff.
And I love those rover pictures too. I love seeing the Mars rover pictures. It's all kinds of cool stuff to look at in those. There was one that they caught the bunker door last year or 2 years ago. Structure, it looks like a bunker door. So, I mean, there was all kinds of stuff.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Staring at that stuff for years. But there's some people say pareidolia, and you get the usual the spin, through belief and disbelief. And
those same types of doors have been reported out being seen out in the desert.
Yeah, even at Montauk they have those
ground bases. Yeah.
Yep. I think they call them wing walls on the side of the bunker doors. Wing walls or something. But that's what they look like exactly. So even in that picture, if you zoom in, it looks like there's somebody standing in the door, like a big square-headed being. You can see his eyes and mouth. I did a short video of that once just to tie it to Montauk, because Montauk supposedly has ancient Egyptian and Mars connections. The Montauk tribe actually does have some.
It's kind of like what Ed Warren once said. It's this pareidolia. It's very strange pareidolia.
Yeah, it is.
You have to wonder.
I was thinking pareidolia is like, how your video camera sees us and it puts a box around our face, like facial recognition. Like pareidolia is us putting 2 eyes and a mouth on something that's actually there, but we can't detect. So we put like a face on it. Right. It's instead of a square box, because that's the first thing we see as a child is like a face. It's the first thing we learn to map out.
That's what the human brain's trying to do.
As a baby.
The human brain, as a photographer, you know this well. The human brain works that way. It's always trying to put a pattern.
Yeah, exactly.
There. Yeah,
that's what I was thinking. Like pareidolia could have another explanation that actually says
I mean,
there is something
there. You hit a lot of people who can show you a picture. Oh, this thing is manifesting. It's coming into being and all that. And it's nothing but a bunch of leaves or dark area and all that. But that's what they're seeing. Mm-hmm. They're putting their belief to that.
Yeah.
I like for something to be unmistakable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Don't need to draw a ring around it to point to it or highlight it or nothing, anything like that. It needs to be unmistakable.
Yeah, I agree. Those unmistakable clips are always like the most, they help the most in the when you're trying to figure something out, for sure.
But look, if you're going to hide something, you're going to definitely make it unstable looking. You're going to make it, zooming in and out, or you're going to make it. Whenever I see anything like that, Brian, and believe me, I've had people come to me over the years. I've been doing this well now well over 50 years.
Wow.
And I've had a lot of people come to me with photographs. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And I, especially when you see something like that, that's very suspicious. That's the first red flag goes up.
Yeah.
It's been manipulated for a purpose, for a reason, a lot of times.
Yeah.
And that tells you the whole story there a lot of times. But I finally I tell people, I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not trying to be a bad guy about this. But unless I was there, or I can really vouch for the person that took that picture, I can't say one way or the other,
Yep.
It's just, and with AI nowadays, here's the bad thing about for us as researchers. All this stuff puts a pall and a cast on things that we're looking at. We don't really know anymore. Now we can't really say for sure on a lot of this stuff, if it's AI or if it's CGI or whatever the situation is. I've seen some great stuff. You have too. They need to be working for Hollywood, definitely.
Yes. Some of them are so great, and I like to watch those.
You can't trust it, Brian. You can't trust it.
Even if they are fake, some of them I enjoy watching. It's just my kind of topics, and I like seeing but I guess logic could help a little bit. Like if there's no context or nothing before the video, and it just like jumps in, or you recognize the audio sometimes that they reuse in other videos, stuff like that. And then you just put it in the entertainment pile, I guess, or I do at least, because.
And right now, the best way we can tell AI is it messes up hands and feet.
Yes, they're terrible at hands. Yeah.
When it ever gets that perfect, we may be in big trouble. Okay.
I was just watching one with the giants building the pyramid, and these like giants are lifting up the blocks, and they have like all these workers, but the guys are disappearing like under the block. He puts the block down on top of them, and like they're walking up. The ropes are all everywhere. It looked like a mess. It was a cool concept, but. To demonstrate the idea.
I told you earlier, I've been messing around with AI a little bit.
That's cool.
And what I like is sometimes it'll add an extra arm there.
Nice. Yeah, it has a real problem with I saw one with I think it was the Pope's hand, but they had another hand, coming off and split into it. They were like on top of each other, the two hands. It has a real problem with hands.
I tell you what worries me is that when the day comes that it really perfects itself to the point where it's going to say, "Hey, I don't need you, Brian. I don't need you, Dennis, anymore. I can do better than you can." We might be in big trouble then, definitely.
Yeah, I've watched a few of the AI
here's
videos.
The thing about AI and all this stuff, though, Brian. I'm sure you agree with me on it. It has one flaw. It's made by humans.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I noticed the videos made by AI. I've watched a few, and they tend to ramble on, and they never get to the damn point. You're like, come on. You go through a 40-minute video, and they're just like giving you all this info, but they don't really have
going on and on and on.
Yeah.
It's like what do we call it? Clickbait.
Yeah, it's like clickbait, and a lot of the info is incorrect, but you just watch it. The amazing thing is some of those videos, AI has found this stuff that they put in the video. Like, where did they get that? Because that's something I've never seen, or like, I don't think that's on the public servers. Like, I think sometimes when they canvas and pull out stuff for their videos, they might select some stuff that's hard to get. So like, you can find a few gems in some of those AI videos sometimes. Maybe some stuff you're not usually going to see. But I don't want to waste my time watching too many of them. They kind of hurt my brain, like watching them. They never get to the point.
It can get very redundant after a while. Absolutely.
Yep.
Well, I appreciate you joining us tonight. This has been great. And
I also appreciate it.
Do a part 3 on this one day soon. And we will absolutely be talking to you when you get your book out, for sure.
For sure. Thank you.
I'll do a review on it. And
that's awesome.
Definitely we'll have you back on here for that, for sure.
Yeah,
but I will be sure for one thing.
It'll take me a while.
Be watching from the shadows your research, okay?
Yes.
I've been watching this for a long time now. I enjoy your videos and all that stuff.
That's great. I appreciate that.
I'm a big fan. Yeah.
Awesome. That makes my day. It's going to take me a little while, but I'll definitely send you one, and appreciate the review, of course, and you having me, as always.
I'll be looking forward to that, definitely. And don't forget to sign it now. Right?
Of course. Thank you.
Anyway, but I appreciate you being here, and
Likewise.
we always have fun when we get you on here and talk about these things. And
Yeah.
any timetable when the book's going to be out, or
I've been working. Probably going to take me a couple months, honestly, and I'm basing it on getting enough money to print it. So, or unless I can find somebody to help me, I'm doing it myself.
give everybody a heads up anyway.
I'd say a half a year is going to take me. Probably 6 months or maybe sooner, but as late as 6 months, I think the latest. Probably the fall. Probably the fall.
Definitely be watching for that, and I appreciate you so much for being here. And
thank you again.
Got anything else coming up, or anything you're gonna be doing? You're gonna be on these shows, or anything coming up?
Yeah, I just did like a book signing at Barnes and Noble, which is like a normal thing. I'm doing one show. I have a double. First time ever. I'm doing two nights in a row on SNX Radio, Friday and Saturday night coming up. I'll let you know. I think it's the 8th. I'm gonna have to check though. We're still scheduling it. And also, I don't know, something cool in October I'm doing is like a historical society.
Sounds good. I always like book signings. I used to do lectures. Those are good. Yeah, do little lectures on stuff.
That's cool.
Put a presentation together and all that. Some of your research, that's fun too. And I always like to get the feedback. Yeah, from people that watch it. Yeah, always.
Yep.
But we'll be looking for that then, sir. And definitely I'll post your channel back up here. These.
Thank you.
And,
as always.
Yeah, look at everybody where's that's
cool.
at. And we will definitely be looking forward to the next book. And if you haven't got the first book, folks, you don't know what you're missing. Okay. So go out and get you a copy of that. Let me put it back up here. And there's a picture there. We go. And that's the one you want to look for right now. And it's out there. Get you a copy of it. You will be glad you did. It's fascinating read. And like I say, this is fascinating research, without a doubt. And it takes a man of this caliber right here to do that kind of stuff. Absolutely. And I really appreciate you joining us tonight. And it's been a fantastic show. And you take care of yourself out there. Be careful out there if you go back out around Montauk now, okay?
I definitely will.
Keep an eye out for the men in black. You never will where those guys are going to show up.
I will. I'll be looking out for everything.
There you go.
Thank you so much again, and I appreciate everything you did for me.
All right. Well, you take care, bud. And
you too.
Catch up with you later.
See you guys soon. Thanks for being here.
All right. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Great man. That's a great fellow right there. A fantastic researcher. Ryan Minnick. Strange Montauk. I definitely got to put that on. It is definitely on my bucket list to go there. Absolutely one day. And I will look this guy up to take me on a tour. Exactly would. Well, I appreciate you all so much for being here tonight. It's been a fascinating night. And like I say, go check out Brian's book if you get a chance. And go check out the show I did with Jessica Jones about the Annabelle doll. Check that out. And check out tomorrow we'll be doing a show with Chantel on Africa, on Aquarius Rising Africa. Agents of Evil. You do not want to miss this one, folks. It's going to be a good one. All right. You better watch out for those Agents of Evil. And watch out for everything out there. Just be careful out there. Keep your head on a swivel. Keep your eyes on your six. But we're not going to walk and we're not going to live in fear. No. We're going to leave that behind us. We're going to face the light. Keep the darkness at our backs. Absolutely. And I thank you all so much for your support. And here's Jessica's channel. Please support her. And please support our good friend. You're not going to go see Annabelle. I don't blame you. She was missing for a while. Now they say they found her. I don't know. But I would not really advise that. Absolutely not. Bad enough stuff going on in the world without going and finding more trouble. That's all I got to say. Absolutely. But I definitely appreciate your support for this channel and for helping us out here at Hunting the Shadows. And like I said, if you're not a member, if you're not a shadow hunter, or have you been gifted a Shadow Hunters Club membership, and I want to thank all those who have done that. That's very kind of you. A lot of people have appreciated you for that, definitely. And if you aren't a shadow hunter, you might want to think about being one. I'm fixing to drop some good videos on you here, okay? I may even talk about the two Skinwalker sisters again. The two Skinwalker sisters I ran into. I've got some other things we're going to talk about. So be watching for the videos, members, okay? Absolutely. And also, Lord Starfox has dropped a lot of videos with me, yours truly, involved in 3 of them back to back to back on his channel, Starfox channel, and go check them out. I'll talk about some wild taboo stuff like sex with Bigfoot and some other stuff like that. So you don't want to miss it. Go check it out. That's thank you there, girl. That is Kenny Starfox's channel right there. Go check it out. We talk about some very interesting stuff. I try to always talk with him about things in the way else is talking about. Okay, I try to be spontaneous on this stuff. Absolutely. But anyway, go check it out. You will be glad you did. And you don't have to watch it. You can listen to it. There's no video sound, but you can listen to it while you do your housework, okay, or whatever you're doing. But I appreciate you all so much for being here, and as your for my fellow shadow hunters and their support. From the bottom of my heart, I appreciate you all, and thank you so much. And don't forget, this is your podcast too, okay? And when I say that, I mean that, okay? I don't say what I mean. I say what I mean, and I mean what I say, okay? I don't say things without meaning it. And it is your podcast as well. And who knows, you may end up on here one of these days. You never know, okay? So be thinking about that too. But don't be looking for those videos. And we will be coming at you Friday night, 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Paranormal Point of View. Who knows what I may have in store for you then. You better watch out. Absolutely. But until we get together again then, my friends, take care of yourselves. And Godspeed and bon chance, bon ami. The hunt has begun. Hunting the shadows.